this is Dragon Views. I hope y'all are doing well. Welcome back to my channel, and this time around I'm going to do something a little different as we're waiting for new material to come in later this fall. I'm going to go over one of the materials I just seen in the summer, or is more specifically Netflix, My Melody and Kuromi. This is a story about, those iconic Hello Kitty characters? Well, this focuses on My Melody, a bunny like character, as well as Kuromi, who is a little bit of a bat. Forgive me if I'm not familiar with these characters. This is the first time I've ever really took notice of them. And of course, this focuses on their strange adventures. It takes place of Maryland, where My Melody comes across a heart in the middle of a forest that has the power to make all the sweets taste good. However, it winds up into the wrong hands, and let's just say things go south for My Melody and Kuromi in both ways in one. And there are a lot of surprisingly dark undertones that go into this show. There is some slight hint of cannibalism involved because these are candy people that are trying to eat each other. And so it focuses on and I'm going to go over these themes into this video and explore the parallels between three specific characters: My Melody herself, Kuromi, and Pistachio. Be warned, there can't be some spoilers in this, so if you have not watched My Melody, I'd recommend you should. It's like the equivalent of a 2-hour movie, so it's easy to binge watch. And come back to this video when you have a chance. But without further ado, let's begin. Best to kick off this video with My Melody and her desires. She wants nothing more than to make everyone around her happy, always putting everyone first. She's practically one of the most wholesome characters in this series, and you feel bad for her when misfortune hits her. Such a nice person did not deserve that, not even from her friends. I mean, true, she kept Tart as a secret, but it was mostly because she didn't fully understand what was going on. Even though Flap could have insisted on figuring it out together, even that could have not prevented what had happened down the line. If anything, My Melody embodied about how we come off as very lighthearted, cheerful, and optimistic, feeling like everything in life is going to go well for us. However, in this case with My Melody and Kuromi, this is also where kindness can also have a consequence, both positive and, unfortunately in her case, negative consequences. She had to deal with the suffering that was unwittingly placed upon her, though most of it was not her fault. That Pistachio practically, who I will talk about later, took the heart away and manipulated everyone involved just for his own gain. But despite all that, she still put her passion into cooking and tried to overcome those difficulties with the help of Kuromi. It's because of her own simplicity and her desires to make others feel loved and wanted, it makes her a very endearing character despite of how she stands out against the trends. With Kuromi, she's kind of a mixed bag in terms of how we feel about her. On the one hand, you hate of how she acts towards everyone, and it really comes across as your stereotypical mean girl, never always getting pushy and upset when people don't like her food or when they're not giving her the time of day. Though considering of how everyone acts towards My Melody, I could sort of see where she can get a little envious. However, we definitely see of how that envy that Kuromi has for My Melody gets very destructive, up to the point where her jealousy made her manipulated by Pistachio. And this ultimately blows up in her face when Her only truth friends, aside from the big eared guy, I am so sorry, I'm not familiar with many of these guys. She soon realizes the reality of her mistake and thus allows her true colors to show when she helps My Melody at her lowest. After all, she just wanted a little attention and recognition, not full on turn everyone into zombies and create destruction as a result of that. Uh, she definitely embodies how a lot of people are. We have a tendency of being jealous towards each other, and that can lead to some destructive consequences. And Kuromi portrays that very well. For kids anime, Pistachio has basically been one of the most tragic anime characters in history. Well, in terms of a kids' TV show. Anyway, he was basically trying to be the best chef he could be. He wanted to cook, please his dad, filled with expectations. However, when he decided to let some of his friends do some cooking, it backfired on him where people started to value his friends' cooking more than his own skills. It was up to the point where he wasn't even sure of what he was doing anymore and took his father's candy heart, literally speaking, and used its power to create edible food that would make everyone flock over to Pistachio's corner. However, that backfired in the worst and darkest way possible. When the sweets were run out, everyone began to eat each other because they were basically candy themselves. And also wound up eating their king too, leaving poor Stachio as practically the only survivor in the kingdom of the clouds. As a result, he was filled with guilt and shame and wanted nothing more than to undo the damage he's done. But his approach has been by far the worst. He's been manipulating and omitting truths left and right up to the point where My Melody was in a situation that was beyond her control, and of course manipulated Kuromi to do some of his dirty work in hopes of fixing the heart. But of course, this resulted in Pistachio taking on darker matters at hand, leaving Maryland in total disarray, with leaving both poor Kuromi and My Melody figuring out what the hell to do next. And of course, this resulted in him seeing the errors of his ways thanks through My Melody. When she was asleep and the heart touched her, My Melody was immediately voicing the king, trying to give some condolences and reassurance to Pistachio, the much needed comfort that Pistachio needed after being dealt with all of this guilt that his own desire had. More or less, this represents of how much our desires and the need for approval can sometimes be dangerous at that point, and Pistachio is a nice blend that represents that. So, what do you guys think? What do you think of My Melody and Kuromi? Do a like and subscribe. And if there's any other details, feel free to put into the comments below. This is Dragon Veo signing off.